All right, looks like we are live. Welcome, everybody, to Standing for Truth. My name is Donny, and I am your host for this program. It is a privilege to have Sam Jenkins from the Creation Research Team, one of my favorite teams today, refuting evolutionism and upholding the truth of young Earth creation. We have been blessed with numerous presentations and discussions with John Mackay, the creation guy, Joe Hubbard, and Diane Eager. And today we have Sam Jenkins, somebody who works very closely with the CR team. And we are going to get to know him a little bit, as well as some of the awesome things he does for the creation research team. Sam, my brother, tell us a little bit about yourself and speak a bit about creation research.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, everyone. I am the sort of the tech guy of creation research. I got involved numerous years ago. Well, I say numerous years ago, a few years ago, with creation research as I came on to sort of rehaul things. Things were sort of, I don't want to say stagnating, but they weren't letting the channel grow. And so I came on and helped with the tech side of things. So that's sort of one of the things I'm sort of here to talk about is the tech side of creation research. And for those of you who don't know, creation research is an organization, it's a ministry that does scientific experiments and research and developments and presentations. And we also do a weekly show every Friday called Creation Conversations, where we have a chat about different things. And we present that to you, the audience, as sort of like a free gift from us for supporting the ministry and sticking around and helping the channel grow.
It's a very generous gift, Sam. I love the Creation Conversations weekly show. Your team is so well-rounded: genetics, biology, geology, a little bit of everything coming out of the Creation Research Team. And I love how you guys keep the evolutionists, the skeptics, and the critics on the defense with some of the most up-to-date arguments there are in the world of creation. So before I get into technically the first question of today's program, I do want to remind the audience that we are going to be taking questions for Sam. Of course, let's make sure they're on topic. And so if you got any burning questions for our guest today, tag me at Donny or at Standing for Truth, and we'll make sure we give Sam the opportunity to answer them. So, Sam, you mentioned creation conversations. What sort of things do you do during these programs for those who are unfamiliar with your ministry and also its content?
Oh, well, basically anything and everything we cover on Creation Conversations. We have a weekly topic. So the one that we did yesterday was good to bad to worse, which was the progression of everything being created good. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and Garden of Eden, man, sheep, cows, dinosaurs, and it was all fantastic. And then man ate from the tree and sinned, and sin entered the world and all that jazz, and that made it bad. And then Noah's flood happened, that made everything worse, and it's just all downhill. It's a fascinating topic, and we try and pick ones that are sort of going to be interesting. They're sort of like just more sort of targeted. But also one of the things that we do is we take your questions live and answer them, and they can be on anything. So if you've seen something in the news that you really want an answer to, or if there's a skeptic that you've seen on Reddit or a YouTube comment or something like that, or a YouTube video, whatever, saying something, then you can get an answer. And that's what we provide. We offer our knowledge to you, the viewer. And I don't think people really realize just how much research goes into all of these topics, for want of a better term, the weekly topics. Dr. Diane Eager is phenomenal. She really, really gets in deep with a lot of stuff. Especially, we did a program not this week, but the week before, on the origin of life. The presentation Diane did was just amazing. It was so good we actually uploaded it as a separate video. So if you do go to our Creation Research YouTube channel, you can actually watch that. If you go into our YouTube channel homepage and click on videos, you should be able to see it. There's a few videos back, should be able to see it. And yeah, it's a fantastic witnessing tool as well. And not a lot of people sort of take into account that some of the things that we do are really great witnessing tools for some people. Yes, Sandy, I completely agree with you. Diane is one of the best teachers. She is really, really great. But yeah, this is it's really important that people understand sort of the work that goes on and the effort that we do to really give you guys the answers that you need. There's a lot of research that goes on behind the scenes, and we stay up to date with all of the latest science. We subscribe to all of the science journals, all of the science magazines, and scour the news every single day, looking for new things that have come up and things like that. And it's really amazing. I'm so proud of our team. Because they do an absolutely phenomenal job. And all I do is I just pull up questions on a weekly basis, basically, just make sure things don't go wrong. But yeah, so if you are interested, please do check us out. It's completely free. Don't need to subscribe, although that is free. It does really help us out. And but yeah, you can come along, have a chat with us. We're really friendly. We welcome everyone. Skeptics, Christians, people from other faiths. It doesn't matter. We welcome everyone. Have a really friendly environment for everyone to be to interact with each other in the chat, and also through us via the medium of live streaming. But yeah, so that is basically Creation Conversations in a nutshell.
Well, I appreciate that response, Sam. Again, I mentioned it earlier, your team's so well-rounded, and that is one of the many aspects that I really appreciate, that I really love about Creation Research, is how interactive you guys are with the community, right? It's 2023, 2022 was a great year, but taking advantage of technology and the access we have to these platforms like YouTube. And in these Creation Conversations episodes, I love how you take questions. It can be on anything, any topic. Skeptics, critics can put forth their objections. And John and Joe and Dr. Diane do an excellent job addressing every question and objection. And as Sandy C says, very interactive. And so that's what I really love about your ministry and other ministries who do that same thing. I do truly believe it's very important these days, especially to address our critics. They're out there. There's a lot of them. And the Creation Research team does a fantastic job addressing the critics. I'm looking right now. In the description box, you'll find all the relevant links. Also, the Creation Research team here on Standing for Truth, we've had an awesome partnership. And we've got 18 videos in that playlist. So you can find at least 17 presentations, and then also one debate that Joe Hubbard did with Snake Was Right, probably going on a couple years now. So, Sam, I appreciate that answer. And as I've pointed out, the Creation Research team does an excellent job refuting arguments for an old Earth and refuting arguments for common ancestry. John, Joe, and Diane, they're incredibly well informed on these topics. Your team is very well rounded. And my question to you is, in working for Creation Research and being so involved in the work and the presentations, what has become just a couple of your favorite topics overall?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Do you know, actually, because it's not just Joe, John, Diane, and myself. We have Craig Hawkins, who is from Tasmania. He has a creation museum as well as Seahorse World. I think it's called Seahorse World. I'm not sure. It's probably something else differently. Craig, if you're listening, I do apologize. But he does a cracking job down there. Really, really good. And some of the answers that Craig's given has been really, really good. He can really help sort of explain things in a layman's terms, which is a real gift for him, actually. And also we have Glenn as well, Glenn Wilson. He's a soil scientist. Believe it or not, there is such a thing as a soil scientist. He as well. He's very well rounded, and he actually hosts a show in the States on the radio. I cannot remember it for the life of me. So again, Glenn, if you're listening, I do apologize. But yeah, so a big shout out to those guys, because they are just as hardworking as everyone else on the team. It is Seahorse World there, but see, Sandy in the chat has got it right. See, backing me up. Thank you, Sandy. Good to see regular viewers of our of our creation conversations actually backing me up on something. But yeah, so oh gosh, topics. Do you know what? Actually, I think that whenever dinosaurs are involved, they're really good. It's really good to find out a bit more about dinosaurs than than what you would sort of see if you went to a museum and they've got sort of a basic A3 sized little plaque that says this fossil was found in the but yeah, it's really some of the topics that we delve into, especially to do with dinosaurs, are really interesting. Like, for instance, we're talking about teeth. Teeth can only tell you how an animal eats, not what it eats. For that, you need to look at stomach contents and things like that. As well as fossil dinosaur poo, coprolite. Those things can really sort of help gauge sort of what is a dinosaur would have eaten. I found that really interesting, and as well, Diane really gets into sort of the beauty of creation, which I think is a very broad topic, but I think just in that in itself is fantastic. Just hearing about just the coding in DNA and just how eloquent Diane puts it, of how all these the code of the DNA and how it all works in tandem, and if one small change can change so much, and again, I can't stress enough, if you have not seen Diane's presentation, please do go to our channel and check it out, because it is phenomenal, and it's a really good witnessing tool, especially if you're in school, you've got skeptic classmates, or you've got skeptic professors, or if you've got friends that are saying about the origin of life, that sort of thing. Really, really worth sending that presentation over. But yeah, to be honest, I think the beauty of creation, which Diane tends to usually cover, because she is a genuine doctor, or she has in biomedical science. She really has studied that properly. And she really, really does do a bang up job of explaining things, and also explaining things simply as well. Because so part of the challenge is you can go really in deep to a lot of these topics and get really technical with a lot of stuff. But overall, I think some of the things that we do as a team is we really help explain things in a layman's point of view, so that everyone can understand. And that's the whole point of the ministry, is to give knowledge to everyone, not just to limit to those who are sort of more intelligent. That's a real challenge sometimes, especially to do with things like DNA, because it can get very, very complex. But Diane nails that every single time, and the team nails that every single time. But yeah, so that is probably my answer to that question. Very long-winded, but that's probably my answer to that.
Excellent answer. I completely agree. Dr. Diane Eager's presentations on the beauty of DNA, the sophistication of the information systems that make life. We did a presentation a little while ago with John Mackay on design, specifically titled Design the Final Proof. I believe that's the one, but it could be another, because we've done so many, where Dr. Diane was here as well with us, and she gave a fantastic presentation on exactly what you're talking about. And when it comes to these points, especially in the world of genetics and biology, it's a skill. It's important to convey these oftentimes very technical and complicated arguments and subjects in a way that is understandable. And that is something your team does incredibly well in order that everybody can understand what's being talked about. So, Sam, I appreciate that response. Doki Doki Bible Club. Appreciate it, brother. There we go. Dr. Diane Eager's Origin of Life presentation. Please do check it out.
Good on you, Doki.
That's why we pay him the big bucks.
Yeah, so, exactly. Well, see, I do it, but I'm presenting here, so I don't have time to sort of go into the background like I usually do on Creation Conversations to get all these links and things.
Well, that's why we have some of the best chat mods in the business. So they are going to make sure all the relevant links are posted to the mods. I really appreciate it and your work. So, Sam, looking at your channel, being very familiar with your channel's content, the YouTube channel that is, you've had several great and well-known guests on your channel. Few that come to mind: Simon Turpin from Answers in Genesis, of course, Dr. Andy McIntosh, Professor Andy McIntosh, and Ray Comfort, to name a few. How do interviews like this come about, Sam?
Andy McIntosh, I've known about for a long time because my dad knows him. I don't know how he knows him, but it seems to me it'd be that my dad seems to know everyone that is everyone. People who in the UK may know of the Chuckle Brothers. They did a kid show called Chucklevision, quite famous in the UK. Very physical comedy, directed to children. He played golf with them, just as you do, just casually play golf with them. And he actually used to work with Richard Hammond from Top Gear and Grand Tour. He used to work with Richard Hammond. So just casually name dropping a whole bunch of people that my dad has interacted with, met, or worked with. But a funny story actually, because with Ray Comfort. It was really interesting how that sort of came about, because I reached out to Living Waters a while ago. I never actually heard anything back. It could have been they were in a very busy period, or maybe my email didn't actually get through or something. I don't know. But and then I was watching some of the videos on their YouTube channel, and I had a look at sort of the comments, and they're saying, "Oh, you know, Ray's amazing." And seeing how many views they were getting, I was just like, "Okay, well, if we can get Ray on, that would be brilliant." So I shot another email across, filled out the interview request form, and sent that off. And I heard back miraculously. Ray's receptionist got in contact, and I managed to wangle an interview with the Ray Comfort, much to the confusion and also delight of Joe and John. I am now under instructions to check with Joe and John before I book people in for the show. So that won't be happening again. But it was really good actually, because the real it gave us a big boost in terms of figures. Having Ray on, Sandy C has nailed it. Having Ray on was a biggie. It really was big for us, because we've had you're right. We've had some very prominent people on, but I don't think we've had anyone on to the level that Ray is, because Ray is just so well known, and his ministry is so well known of, and he works very closely with AIG in the States, especially with Ken Ham. They partner together all the time, and it's really sort of it boggles your mind slightly, sort of just how much of a difference that can actually make. But yeah, it was really great having Ray on. He's a wonderful guy, really nice, down to earth, and he's funny as well. He's genuinely funny with his some of his responses. There's a lot of wit there, and I think that's good, especially when you're talking to someone. When you're witnessing like Ray does, don't be afraid of using humor, because it can be a great tool. because we can actually
Right.
relate into humor a lot with everyone. You know, everyone has a sense of humor. You know, some are more darker than others, but everyone has a sense of humor. But you know, it's really, really, it's a really good tool to use, is humor. And I try to use it as much as I can, because I like to think I'm you know, one of the funnier people in the family. I'm very weird as well, as my wife will tell you. But yeah, it's I have always been of the mind of using humor to get, you know, across a point, and that's really helped, especially if I've been witnessing. And to see Ray doing that is you know, it's an encouragement for me as well, to knowing I can actually do that. But yeah, I mean, I mean, a lot of the people that are who Joe and John know just through being in the creationist space. A lot of connections, especially John has made a lot of connections over the past, and people may not actually know, but John actually used to work with Ken Ham, and they started up in Australia working together. And then Ken decided to take a ministry over to the States, and that's how AIG came about. And John stayed in sort of Australia, and you know, founded sort of creation research. And people, you know, may not know that about John, is that he worked very closely with Ken for a good number of years. But yeah, you know, and you know, as people say as well in sort of business conversations, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You know, connections make everything.
Right.
And it can be it's really, really good to sort of you know, make these connections as you go along, and you know, keep in touch with these people, because you never know when they might actually come in useful later on. So yeah, but that's sort of how they come about, just either people who we know, or just through my blind emailing living waters out of the blue and getting into a little bit of trouble with Joe and John. But yeah, so that's sort of to answer the question.
A lot of good information there, and you're right. A lot of people don't know that, and I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to that, because I do find it very interesting. And if you go to Answers in Genesis, the website, just type in John Mackay, you will find articles published from just years and years ago. You know, I'm looking at one here: coal, volcanism, and Noah's flood, 1984. Answers in Genesis, John Mackay and Andrew Snelling. And so you'll find John very involved, especially back then. One of my first experiences, or probably the first experience with John, and I was an immediate fan, was his debate, in-person conversational debate with Richard Dawkins. And John just absolutely schooled him. He was confident, he was calm, he was collected, and I was very impressed.
Just on that, actually, it's interesting how if you go looking for it, you can find it. But the Channel 4 didn't actually put out the full interview on the program. Obviously, it was cut for time, but it was cut in a way to make it appear that Richard Dawkins had the upper hand over the silly, you know, creationist. But if you watch it in full, you can see that, you know, John holds his own, and he provides very logical, very you know, sound answers to Richard's questions, and Richard seems flabbergasted because it doesn't seem like he has a response. But you know, editing can change how you view someone, and you know, it's worth seeking out. Actually, go if you type in John Mackay, Richard Dawkins into YouTube, you can find it. I think there's one in 2 parts somewhere on YouTube. But go and watch it. It's genuinely really interesting. And he actually surprised John just out of the blue, called him and said, "Oh, we're coming to your event. We want to interview and want to film it that same day." So take from that what you will. It's sort of an impromptu meeting.
And John did excellent. I think that conversation is a prime example as to why Richard Dawkins refuses or shies away from doing formal debates with informed creationists, because John Mackay is an example of an informed, well-educated creationist, somebody who's a really good debater. And Richard Dawkins did not look good at all. He did not. his position did not come across well. And so that tells me it would not go well for him if it was a formal debate. And I think that's why a lot of these more well-known evolutionists shy away from these debates. So can you speak a little bit to the origin of creation research and Answers in Genesis? You were saying Ken Ham and John Mackay, they started their own ministry, and then eventually they branched off, where Ken Ham came to the States, started his ministry, Answers in Genesis. John stayed in Australia. Is that more or less, if you could speak to that a bit?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much about the history, but that is essentially it in a nutshell. Ken felt led to take a ministry aspect to the States, to establish that there, and it's grown into the behemoth that is AIG today, especially in the creationist space. And John stayed behind and stayed with Australia and ministering there, and building the ministry up there. And I think also as well, one of the things that we started doing quite early on, which I'm not too sure about this, so don't quote me on it, but I don't think that AIG actually put anything out in terms of films before Creation Research started doing it. So we had, one of the first programs we did was on, I believe, was living fossils. With as people in the chat will probably know, my warning. If you are to go and watch that, there are some very short shorts, some very high socks, and some very 70s upholstery, and a very bushy-haired younger John Mackay doing a presentation on living fossils. But there's a lot of stuff in there that's actually really good, and we do actually want to upgrade that to make it a bit more up to date, because the stuff in there is solid, it's good, but there's been so many more that have been found that we want to put in terms of living fossils. It's really, really it's sort of it's always been part of the DNA of creation research, is making these films to inform just layman's people. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I had a VHS tape of Dinosaurs: The Rest of the Tale, and I remember watching it a few years later and realizing that as soon as there was a dinosaur on screen, it went all fuzzy and snowy, and I realized that I'd gone back and rewound over the parts where the dinosaurs were. And I didn't necessarily listen too hard to the knowledge that was being given in that, but it just goes to show it, our content can appeal to all ages of people. But yes, I mean, it's always been in our DNA to make these films and things like that. It's well worth it to do these sort of presentations, and especially creation conversations. It's sort of a natural progression for us to go into the the live streaming sort of space, because that is sort of where content is now. And creation research is before I joined was stuck a little bit behind. I don't think that the ministry caught up with the times as much as could have been done. The youth channel didn't have anything on it really. Well, we had some content on there, but we also had there was no live streams, there was no sort of weekly show or anything like that. And then Joe came aboard and suggested the idea of creation conversations, and that was during COVID. We had we wanted to do something whilst we couldn't do any ministry work. So that's how creation conversations came about. And it started off as this 30-minute presentation each week. And there's only a handful of them done, as far as I know. There may have been more. I can't remember, but there was a lot of experimentation with going live on Facebook, and a lot of it was, Joe and John saying, "Can you hear me? This is a test. Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2." And I know I can't see you. And he was sort of trying to find our feet. And then we started doing the weekly live streams for 30 minutes. And then Joe had to take a break because of health reasons. And then I sort of came on board. My dad emailed John a little, well, it was a few years ago now, sending him an article, and John remembered exactly who I was with no prompting. I'd met him a few times. But yeah, it actually, to be honest, it might be worth going into my testimony a bit, because it's been a while since I've been on here. Some people may not know me on this channel. What do you think? Should I give that a whirl, Donny?
Let's do it. I think testimonies are very important, and so let's get your testimony, Sam. I'd appreciate it, brother.
Right, then. Okay. Well, I grew up in a city called York, in the north of England, in Yorkshire, and I sort of went. I went to church because I considered it to be the done thing. My parents went to church, so I went to church, and I, sung the songs, and I prayed the prayers in church and all that stuff. And I never thought that it was, anything more than that, really. I never felt a connection, jumping up and down and shouting God's name and Jesus and all that, clapping hands, wavy hands in in church and that sort of thing. But I never sort of felt a real connection to it. And then I went off to Bible college. But in the year, to relate it to the creation research, there were a few times I met John. I met him at Calvary Chapel, York, which was my parents knew the pastors, who are still the pastor and his wife, and they still know them today. They're still good friends, and yeah, he did a talk there. I met him briefly. I think I asked a question on something. I was in beginnings of secondary school, and then I met him again. I think it was back in 2011 or 2012. I think this was just before I went off to Bible college, and I met him and took a picture. And that picture will be relevant later on in the testimony. But I went off to Bible college, did 3 years study, and in that time I experienced the worst of Christianity. People were vile, were gossiping and being slanderous, and going behind people's backs, and there was a lot of peer pressure from them to get involved in certain things which I wasn't necessarily comfortable with, because I'd never really been in that environment before, and it was all very new. I was still trying to sort of get my bearings, and that wasn't where I was on my faith journey and that sort of thing. And there were a lot of people who in my view back then showed me the true face of Christianity. And I sat back and I thought, do you know what? If this is the best of the best of Christianity, going to this prestigious Bible college, which is the part of Elim, the Elim movement, and if that's the best of the best, I don't want anything to do with it. If that is the true face of Christianity, I don't want anything to do with it. And so I left the faith. I became a vehement atheist, a keyboard warrior, as some people would call, typing comments to people online, and I got into heated arguments with my parents, and it was really horrible for me, because I went into a place expecting to be there to be love and kindness and acceptance of whoever you are and whatever journey you are, and then all of a sudden to experience that was just a massive shock to the system. And then I went into this sort of pit of despair and horribleness of being really bitter and horror and just doing everything because I wanted to. It was just what I wanted to do. And then in 2020, I was scrolling through Facebook. So this was in the middle of lockdown. And there was this post by there's a group in the United Kingdom. It's related to the Church of England in the sense that it's plugged directly into it and things like that. But I think it operates as a separate entity. I don't know. I'll have to check on that. It's called Alpha, and it's basically it's a place where you can go and ask questions and be open and honest about things, and you talk things through about faith and belief and things like that, or with a Christian viewpoint. I know of Alpha from years of growing up in the church, because the church we went to was just around the corner from our house. It was tied into the Church of England, so we had a lot of ties with that, and so that was sort of, I already knew what Alpha was, what it was about, and that sort of thing. And as part of that, I was sort of taken aback because I hadn't, how Facebook works is, it pushes content to you based on what you searched and your history and cookies and tracking you across websites and things like that. I hadn't searched anything faith in, I think, probably a year or two. I think I'd probably that long. And it just came up on my feed, and I was very shocked to find it there. And I was sort of like, why is this advert for Alpha here? And I don't know what happened, but it sort of led me. Something happened to lead me. I know it was God. Looking back now, back then I didn't know, what was leading me. But I actually signed up for Alpha, and then something supernatural happened in that I had this need to know more of this hunger to find out the truth, to know more about what was going on in religion and everything to do with that. And I'm rambling a little bit, but the essence was that I had this hunger to know more, and I was staying up until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning doing serious research on all the religions, because it was sort of, I had the mindset of like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I have to know once and for all, is there such a thing as a God? Does God exist? And so I was looking through all of these religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Mormonism, Christianity, Jehovah's Witness, Islam, everything. And I got it narrowed down to 2. Got it narrowed down to Christianity and Islam. And I thought, right, okay, so the crux of the argument here is that I have to know if Jesus was real. He was who he said he was. He died on the cross and he did rise again. That's the crux of the argument. Did Jesus rise from the dead? Because without that, Christianity crumbles to the floor, because there is nothing to stand on with that argument. And I was doing research after research, watching debates between Christians and Muslims on the topic, reading articles. I read Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus by Nabil Qureshi. That's a fantastic book if you want a recommendation from me. And the more I read, the more I looked at things, the more I realized that I had this mountain of evidence in front of me, and I couldn't actually sort of get away from it, because I'm more sort of analytically minded, more scientifically, directed in my thoughts, very logical. I had this mountain of evidence in front of me. I got to a crossroads, and it was week 2 of Alpha, and I was researching the resurrection. And what was the topic that week? It was the resurrection, and how textual criticism, and how we can trust the Bible and trust the accounts in the Bible and that sort of thing. And I I just had this sort of moment when I was in the alpha group, and I was just like, this is not an accident. I can't get away from this. This is just, I have to make a choice here. I have to choose to accept this evidence or reject it. And me being the way I am, I had no choice but to accept it. I had to admit it because the evidence just supported it. And I stayed behind after the call, and I gave my life to Christ, and then that sort of just started a whole different trajectory into my life. And then it was about I want to say 8 months later, my dad sends the email to John, and he remembers exactly who I was with no prompting from him. Knew my name, knew I went off to Bible college, that sort of thing, and I decided to get in contact with him. I felt led to contact him, and me and John met up. John was in his dressing gown. I distinctly remember he was in his dressing gown because it was in the middle of the night for him, and that was the only time I could meet him. But yeah, it was an interesting conversation because we both felt led that there was something here. I should be involved with creation research. And leading on from that, I had a discussion with John about it, and John felt the same. Felt God was calling him to bring me into the ministry, and so John introduced me to Joe, and I met up with Joe around the corner from where I live, and we had a chat, and I basically formally came on, and in preparing for that, I had a look at the YouTube channel, and I gave some harsh but fair criticism of the channel, saying you are doing this wrong. If you want to take this seriously, you need to do a show of at least an hour and a half. Otherwise it's just not worth doing. Just analytically it just won't go anywhere. And then we were talking, and Joe said to me, I was talking to John about it, about you, and he told me that he carried around that photo with him for years and showed people, saying, "Oh, this is Sam. He's in the UK. He's going to be doing really great things. I think he's a really bright young lad." All those years, he showed that one photo to people, and I was just absolutely mind blown that just why me? And it's all led to this moment of me joining creation research. This is where it's culminated to. This was God's plan. And so I basically formally came on with creation research, and I helped rejig a lot of things to get things up and running. And I got all the logins for the YouTube channel and did some tweaking and changing things and really sort of rehauling things. And it's sort of all been up from there, really. That's basically my testimony up until this moment now. But yeah, so there we go. That's my testimony. It's very long-winded and somewhat rambling, but we got there eventually. And I do apologize for the rambling, because I do have ADHD, and I do ramble a lot. So that is the reason. So please forgive me.
Nothing to forgive, brother. Fantastic testimony. It's the kind of testimony that maybe one day will be put into a really good movie. God sees the bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The question is, who's going to play you? Which famous actor is going to play? Or maybe you can play yourself. And
see, well, I did, to be honest, I did actually go to Bible college to actually train as an actor. So you never know. But maybe a younger version could be someone famous. I don't know. I don't know who. In sort of a bit of a culture shock, sort of time bending, time twisty thing. I'd like Ryan Reynolds to play me. I think he'd make a great me.
There we go. Classic. And we know a thing or two about keyboard warriors here with a lot of the evolutionists. So you were once a keyboard warrior, and now you're a faithful Christian who is upholding the truth of biblical creation. So God bless you for that, brother. And a question I have is, one of the things you have brought up before, and have actually partnered with us on here at Standing for Truth Ministries, Sam, is the Genesis Project. And so can you please tell us a little bit about the Genesis Project? What is it exactly?
Okay. The Genesis Project is so this actually came about in that meeting with Joe. I had this idea of this, really interesting, project that we could actually do as part of creation research. I had this idea of creating a very visual representation of Genesis, of the days of creation as they happened, and taking people through, because I wanted to give a resource for people who struggle with the Bible. Sometimes they're only bringing up with the Bible is King James only activists, and if they hail from that background, and they might really struggle with some of that sort of Shakespearean language of these and thous and hast you unto me, and all that sort of malarkey, and also as well, bringing a lot of the science of what we do as with the research things. We want to give as an accurate as a picture as we possibly can. There will need to be artistic liberties taken at some point, just simply because of the nature of the beast. We can't actually just pin it down to 100% accurate, faithful. It's not possible. We weren't there. We don't know exactly how these things came about, but we know they did come about, and we can use our best guess. And some aspects we may need to sort of show it in a more artistic way. And so the Genesis Project is sort of my brainchild, and my passion project. And I wanted to put it out for free. I wanted to have sort of like this 20-minute film, 20-minute film, showing people the days of creation, going from nothing, just God hovering above the face of the waters, right the way through to the beginning of Genesis 2, where God was just looking. God is looking upon His creation, and that sort of resonated with Joe. He thought that was a fantastic idea. So I created a concept and sent that over, and they had a lot of notes. But I edited it back again, and I did another one. This time it was longer and that sort of thing. And it was really, really good, solid. It's a really solid resource, actually. It's really shareable. It's a very visual way, because I mean, aside from Genesis 3D, I don't think it's really been done before, and we want to do a different take on it. And it's grown so much since then, because we've changed, the vision and what God actually has the plans for us to do is to create a full documentary with it, using visual effects, CGI to bring creation back to life in front of you. And also to give you teaching along with it as we take you through the days, and to go day one, and then we explain in depth the textual side, the language, and taking you through sort of the ancient Hebrew and how it relates, and where this whole controversy with the days, this word yom can mean periods of time, or can mean a literal 24-hour period, or or an indeterminate length of time. It's a complete spectrum for this word yom, which is why there's such a controversy around it today to do with the language. But to really delve in deep, and then day 2 taking you in depth with that as well, with and going each day, giving you the evidence and the knowledge, and taking you classic creation research style, taking you out into the field and showing you solid evidence of creation, and things like that, and really delving in deep. It's really, really good stuff. And we're going to create 3 different versions. We're going to do a short based one, where we'll just have the day, as its own standalone video. We're going to have the video of the entire sort of days of creation available. Both of those will be available for free, as per the original vision of the project. But the full version, the full sort of hour and a half, sort of maybe 2 hours documentary, will be obviously paid. But it's a really great. It's going to be really great. We've got such big plans for it. But yeah, so anyway, so that's basically the summation of the Genesis project, where it came about and where it's going. So that is the current update on the film. Is that it is sat on my hard drive. No, I can't show it now, and unfortunately,
come on, give us a sneak preview.
No,
Sam.
I can't. Unfortunately, it's under lock and key. But unfortunately, well, I have to keep it that way because there was a George Bond related incident on one of the chats I can't remember if it was last year or not, when George accidentally leaked.
Yeah, that was.
I was tidying up in the bathroom, and I ran. I didn't walk. I ran to my computer to go and make that to no one can access it. You're not George, bless you, mate. He had good intentions, but he was just like, oh, this is the project. You can watch it here, and then just send it to everyone.
It's basically equivalent to, the next big, I don't know, Marvel Avengers movie, and somebody
leaking it online. It said copyright Marvel all over it.
Here you go, guys.
Or something.
6 months before release. So, brother, I'm excited for that film. If you go to our website, to the audience, if you go to our website, I believe it's in the event section or resources section. Scroll to the bottom of the screen. You'll find the trailer. You'll find an advertisement for the film that we are partnering with. And it'll for sure go into the category of the greats, the must-watch films. Genesis, Impact, that you mentioned, by Eric Hovind, Ray Comfort's in it. Also, Dismantled, excellent film, made by Chris Roop, who I just co-authored a paper with, actually. And Evolution's Achilles' Heels. So I'm excited, and it is definitely going to be in there with the greats, brother. So we're all looking forward to that film coming out. Sam, I appreciate that response. And okay, so I guess my next question, my follow-up question would be, how are you using VFX to bring Genesis to life? Could you go through that a little bit and kind of help explain what you mean by the terms CGI and visual effects?
Yeah, so this is sort of where I come into my element. I'm very techie. I've always been a techie person. I've grown up with computers and loving them and everything about them and how they work, and software, and staying up to date with the latest and greatest bits and pieces. And that's sort of what we're doing. We're taking these CGI. It stands for computer generated image. Visual effects is sort of on the same branch there. But they are so if you were to watch a Hollywood film, you can see CGI in practically every single film. There's a lot of what's called green screening is used, where you take an actor, you put either a green or a blue screen behind them, and you use what's called chroma key to edit them out. And you can put them anywhere. You can put them on the moon. You can put them in space. You can put them, underwater, whatever the script calls for. And you can really sort of, it makes you really flexible with what you can do. A lot of, if you're looking at, CGI, I mean, Avatar: The Way of the Water, the budget for that is ridiculous, but you see the effort, pay off on the screen, because you can see how good the visual effects are, especially with water rendering, because that, making a computer version of water is the most difficult thing you can actually do, because of the physics and how all of the fluid interacts with each other, and it's insanely complicated and very time consuming. And that's sort of been a real sort of stumbling block for me, because there's a shot I really want to do and I can't wrap my head around how to do it. So if anyone knows Blender or Cinema 4D or some of the visual effects programs and wants to help out with this one shot, then please do hit me up, please. I beg. But yeah, so we're using this to really bring everything to life, and we're interleaving real footage with CGI, so it's a real mix of both, to really have this sort of best of both worlds. The beauty of current wildlife and plant life and things like that, and show you how beautiful, and basically to show these things, they haven't changed. Creation to now, it hasn't changed, it stayed the same. And then for the more complicated things, like for instance dinosaurs, CGI is used. The trailers that we do have online, a lot of the shots are placeholders, because we're doing a lot of work with things like Unreal Engine to create these shots from scratch to give a better experience for the end viewers. And this is going to be our biggest documentary we have ever done. This is going to be massive, and we're hoping that this will actually put us on the map, with a lot of sort of even the secular communities. We want to get this film in the hands of as many people as possible, even if it's the free version, because we just believe that it's just so powerful, because it's just a really beautiful visual interpretation of Genesis, to really help you understand the beauty and how things happened. When you read Genesis, day by day, you read, let the seas teem with life. What does that mean? What does that look like? But yeah, that's the Donny's putting up the website there. That's the Genesis teaser trailer that we did exclusively for SFT. That's an SFT exclusive trailer. We have not shown that ever on our channel. It's only
that was during the presentation. You and Joe Hubbard, you gave an excellent presentation, and then we had the sneak, or was that the flood boundary one with Joe? That you were I think it was your presentation, right, brother?
My one, yeah. I did. I made the trailer exclusively for SFT because I wanted to provide a little sort of thank you for having me on. So that was the first ever trailer we released. And the latest trailer is available on our YouTube channel. If you go onto our homepage, you should be able to find it's the featured video. We've pinned it to the top, so you'll be able to watch it there. And it just gives you, both trailers give you a really fantastic look at the scale of what we're going to do.
Right.
It's amazing, and the CGI is it's not going to be on the level of a Hollywood studio, but we've never used CGI to this level before. So this for us is massive. It's going to be huge. Especially for us, but we're hoping it's going to make ripples in the community. Both creationism and also the secular communities as well. We want people to notice what we're doing, because what we are trying to do ultimately is point people to Jesus. That is the ultimate goal, is to point, saying, Christ was the creator. John is famously wrote at the beginning of, John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and everything was created through him. Jesus was there in the beginning. Jesus made everything. And that's what we are ultimately pointing people towards, is Jesus is the creator, and you needed to submit to what he has done on the cross and accept his free gift. It is free, much like what the Genesis film will be, completely for free. You don't have to pay a penny for it.
Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. But also it's really important to realize that, a lot of people, get tied up in the debate side of things, and I'm on my high horse. I'm right on this topic. And, you see, Christians arguing, in civilized debates, as well as, keyboard warrior style. But ultimately, all that matters is Jesus. That's all it ever is just all relates to Jesus. That's all it is. It's the simple answer to everything. That's why we do. Where can we watch this video? How much does it cost? And when does it come out? Okay, so there's 3 questions in there. I will take them one by one. So thank you, Apologetics 101. So we have if you go to the Standing for Truth website, you can have a look at the Standing for Truth trailer there. And if you look on our YouTube channel, you can see the trailer for the Genesis project released on there as well. You will be able to watch the cut version, which is just the days of creation, on our YouTube channel. It will be coming in the future. We do not have a release date. I gave a release date when I did a presentation on SFT, my last presentation, probably why I haven't been invited back since, because I haven't released it. So I'm probably under threat of releasing it because that's why I haven't been invited back. No, I'm joking. But it is coming, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done on it. We want this to be perfect. It won't be perfect, but we want it to be as best as it possibly can be. And to do that, we need time. So we do ask, everyone, we are so amazed to see so many people excited for this film, but we do ask, please exercise a lot of patience with us, because, this is the first time I'm directing a film. And the first time that we're doing something on this level. So please be patient with us. We're trying. It'll be available on our YouTube channel. Could you pop the comment back up, because I was going to answer the other 2 questions there.
A lot of work goes into behind the scenes these kinds of films, and so to get the product out right, it takes time. And so
something as well to bear in mind is that you see all these films coming up, and they say coming soon on June 2023, that sort of thing. I would do the voice, but I'm trying to save my I don't want to lose it halfway through, because I can do a really mean trainer guy impersonation. With all of these studios, they have a set release date, but they can meet them because they have millions of dollars to throw at this project, and they can afford the manpower to edit all of it. It's not just one person editing it. It's a whole team of people. You watch the credits, you've got about, 15 people who've edited the film, and, oodles of VFX people who've done all the CGI, and, in huge render farms, millions of dollars spent on these render farms, which, can churn out footage very rapidly. But for us, we can't do that. Which is again is why we're using Unreal Engine, because that is a big time saver for us. But I'll go on to that in a little bit. It'll cost probably the price of our usual documentaries. We're not set on the price yet, but there will be a free element. But we want the knowledge and the wisdom of our teaching to. By buying the film, you are supporting the ministry directly. So that is essentially what you're doing. So you get the knowledge and you're supporting us. It'll come out when it's ready. That's a simple answer. When it's ready. There is no. There's still a bunch of in-person interviews we've got to film. Joe's got to fly out to Australia and film a whole bunch with Diane and John and probably Craig as well. Got to film a whole bunch. Coming soon to a theatre near you. I wish it was coming to a theatre, but we don't have the budget. So I'm just being honest. We don't have the budget.
It'll be winning awards at the Academy, Sam. So you're just being humble. This is going to be the next.
See, well, if this somehow ends up on in the Hollywood circuit and I end up winning an Oscar for VFX, then I will eat a shoe. And I will do it live on Creation Conversations. That is a promise.
With all the work and time you've put into this film so far, going over Genesis and holding to the historical account that the book of Genesis really is the history book of the universe, and we can trust what it says about the 6 days of creation. What are your thoughts on old earth creationists that try and say, well, every day here in Genesis is billions of years, and so they try and fit the billions of years paradigm basically into Genesis, where we would agree it doesn't belong? What are your thoughts on that position?
Well, that's a whole can of worms. I'll answer it simply. Is that I mean, well, actually, to be honest, this leads me into a nice little segue. So I have been doing the Bible Journey Challenge. Shout out to all of my Bible Journey Challenge people who are in the chat who are reading along with the Bible with me. So I am reading the Bible cover to cover from start to finish. I'm currently in Exodus. It's going well. I'm not looking forward to some of the drier books that are rapidly approaching, but we will get there. And my aim is to finish the Bible this year. I want to finish the entire Bible. No jumping around, because you get a lot of Bible reading plans. They say you get an Old Testament section, and then you get a New Testament section, then you get a Psalm or a Proverbs. And I don't want to do any of that. I just want to read it from start to finish. But the thing to remember as well, which is in Scripture, and I will literally read this to you. So there's a key here. I'm reading. The first one I can see is 13. It probably happens before then, but I'm just rapidly trying to find it. So this is verse 12 to 13. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. That is my refutation. I know it's a little bit of an anticlimax, but God literally tells us in Genesis, there was evening and there was morning the X day. It is talking about a literal 24-hour period. It is not on about a period of time. You have to remember, I'm not a scientist. I'm a layperson. I'm one of the more sort of uneducated people on our team. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. But even if you look into the language of it and the context, if script people use verses out of context all the time to try and disprove the Bible or disprove Christianity. Context is everything, especially if you're going into something critically, you have to look at the context. And this is what so many people don't actually look at. And Muslims do have a tendency to do this as well, is they just take a verse and say, see, aha, when they say, Muslims say about, Jesus saying about Muhammad, prophesying about Muhammad coming, saying, I'll send someone before you, blah, 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 blah. They miss out the bit afterwards that says, and it is the Holy Spirit that will come and dwell in your hearts. And they miss that bit out. But they take that verse and go, that prophesies about Muhammad. And you go, okay, let's read it in context here. Let's read, verses either side. And you go through, and it is literally it is a 24-hour period. And also as well is that, there's people that throw up all of these things saying, you can't have plant life before the sun. It's not a problem if it's 24 hours. Plants can live 24 hours without the sun. And even still, there's still light, and the light is Jesus. There is no problem. There just isn't a problem here. This is a straw man argument.
Well, it's incredibly important that we understand Genesis as literal history. And that's why I greatly appreciate the film that is coming out. I'm looking forward to it. But
also as well, sorry, can I just jump in as well? Just a little thought. That, if you're going to be criticizing Genesis, you are throwing out the entirety of Scripture.
Right. Because
the entirety of Scripture rests upon Genesis, because it's in Genesis that we see why we need a savior. The Old Testament is us, God saying, you need a savior, you need a way out of this, trying to fix the problem as best as he can, working with something that's broken, by our own making. But the New Testament tells us how he did it. It's a journey. You see Christ in everything, going from A to B, which is what I'm trying to do with the Bible Journey Challenge. So I encourage you, if you haven't actually read the Bible from cover to cover, or if you jumped around, or if you've read the Bible many times, you just want to read it again just for fun, then please join me. You can read any time. You can start any time. It doesn't matter, as long as we're doing it all together. It's all fun. But by criticizing Genesis, you are criticizing the rest of Scripture, and that is what the biggest problem I have with evolutionists, old Earth, Christians who accept evolution. Where does sin come from? What is the origin of sin? Because God is literally telling us in Genesis, God created it and it was very good. God didn't create sin. So you're telling me that God created everything in a corrupted state of being, with faults, problems, death, destruction, and dinosaurs eating lions, and whatever, however you want to spin it. That probably wouldn't make sense in an evolutionary point of view, I just realized. But anyway, all these things, death and destruction, genetic mutations and illness and disease and suffering, it throws everything out, and you're trying to stuff something that's man-made into God's word, which will never fit. You need to just be real with yourselves and say, okay, I believe in God. God tells us in Genesis that he created the world in 6 days. God is much bigger than me. I'm going to trust the person that was there. That's my stance on it, essentially. I wasn't there. You weren't there. People weren't there. Everyone here who's watching today wasn't there in creation. And I think people sometimes forget that, when we're looking at, evolution as a proposed idea of the origins of life. We don't. No one knows. In terms of like seeing the world as we do now. If you're taking the evolutionary timeline, we weren't there. You're talking millions of years ago, and we have to trust the person that was there, and God tells us how he did it, and God shows us where sin came from. It is our own fault. So, and we have to live with the consequences of that. But God, in his goodness and wisdom, has given us Jesus as a way out. But yeah, Amen. So I mean, yeah, we'll leave it at that, because I can go on all night, really.
It's true. We could literally have a 2-hour show on that. And I think you nailed it, because it's in Genesis where we learn that death is the penalty for sin. Death came into the world because of Adam's sin. Jesus says from the beginning of creation, looking back to the creation week, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And in the beginning, he created them male and female, going right back to Adam, the first man, Eve, the mother of all living. I mean, it can't be any more clear than that, brother. So I appreciate the work you're doing for this upcoming film. And my next question for you, Sam, is you've talked about Unreal Engine. How did that discovery come about? And how did you know that was the tool to use for this film?
Okay. So a little sort of fun fact about me, I'm very nerdy. I'm big into my sort of nerdy things, and part of that is that I love games. I love video games. I have done since I was little. I still do now. Still enjoy them, and I keep up to date with all the latest releases and all the latest technologies and things like that. But one of the things that has sort of came out recently is Unreal Engine. Well, I say recently, in the last couple of years, but it only really sort of took off with the release of Unreal Engine 4, where they made it available to the public. And as a result of that, it opened up the floodgates to a whole load of developers who couldn't afford to create a video game, could now create a video game because they had free access to a tool. It was great for people who are learning video game design, and it's free to use. There's no limits on the software or whatever. It's only when you reach a certain milestone that you have to start paying Unreal. If you're releasing something for free, or for filmmaking purposes or whatever, then you don't need to pay a dime, unless it's sort of like a Hollywood film you're using the technology for, and then you pay a license fee or whatever. But yeah, so it's interesting. The origins of Unreal Engine have really sort of jump started this project, really, because the latest release is called Unreal Engine 5, and it has some really, really exciting technology inside. It's got something called Lumen, which is it's a realistic way of creating light. So light is a very complicated thing to create digitally, because you have to look at refractions and reflections and all sorts of things, and it's very difficult in a computer to create. But Lumen's made it basically easy to do. Everything acts how it's supposed to do. It's all basically acts like real light does, and light bounces off white walls to create a glow, as it were. There's another technology called nanite as well, which enables you to have real high quality what's called photogrammetry. So photogrammetry is a technology that's used, it's actually originated with movies, to create realistic 3D objects by taking pictures of a real world object and putting it onto a 3D model. And that technology has come on leaps and bounds recently. But it's a great tool, and it will help provide a lot of realism for the Genesis film. And it's available for free. We don't have to pay a penny to use it. We don't have to pay a penny to get it out there. And that is a real blessing for us, because it would be a whole different kettle of fish if we were, doing this as part of something, with just stock footage. It wouldn't nearly be as great as it possibly can be. And I'm currently experimenting with some fluid simulation, because Unreal Engine 5 has some fluid simulation inside it, which will be useful. But also as well, there's another technology that we've actually got hold of. We've got hold of a demo of it, and we can actually see how it works and gets to grip with it. But it will make things a lot easier. Not exactly how I want it. Ideally, if we are using 3D stuff, then that would be the ideal situation. But yeah, I mean, we are constantly looking for new technologies. Well, I am anyway, to do things, even as well with the ministry itself. Trying to find better way of doing things, better ways of creating content and things like that. And I see that a lot of people in the comments are actually mentioning our shorts. That was something that came about earlier this year, the turn of the year. I sent an email out to the team and I said, look, okay, I think we need to sort of rejig things. We've had a good while of getting into the flow of doing YouTube stuff and things like that, and it's about time that we sort of take a stab at doing a lot more, because I think that's the step to take. And we started uploading shorts, which has been an absolute blessing to us, because without it, we just couldn't do it. It would have been really slow growth, but the shorts is really accelerating it. But yeah, it's great.
Sam, I appreciate the comprehensive responses. I'm excited. I know the audience is for that film as well. Keep up the great work, Sam. And before we know it, the final product will be released for all to see.
Yeah.
Now, you are, Sam, a regular part of Creation Conversations. You're a regular part of Standing for Truth Ministries, actually, I should say. So I know a lot of people enjoy our podcasts. We've got almost 100 episodes so far in our SFT podcast. And when I say our podcast guy, it's Sam Jenkins who I'm referring to.
That's me.
And Sam, you have put together many of our award-winning trailers, the Evolution Debate Challenge trailer, the Endogenous Retrovirus Handbook trailer, you've put together a ton of excellent trailers for us. Always great music, always previews that really pump everybody up. And so, Sam, I appreciate all the work you're doing for us as well, Stand for Truth Ministry. So really is a blessing to partner with your team. But I would like to know, being a regular part of Creation Conversations, what else do you do in general for the Creation Research team?
Okay, so day to day, I just manage a lot of things. I keep everything sort of, if something has gone wrong, then I will try and find a fix for it. If I'm, if we're in the market for a new computer, say if someone's computer's gone, kablooey, then I'll find a computer that will actually do the job that we need it to do, asking a lot of questions of the person. What are you going to be doing with it? Are you going to be keeping it in the office? Are you going to be taking it with you? Is it going into the field? Because that will determine a whole different bunch of things. What do you need it to do? Do you just need it for emails and web browsing, or are you going to be editing content on it, or what are you going to be doing? And then also, as well as doing Creation Conversations, is managing the chat. You guys can bring it sometimes, and I've had to step in and say, "Oi, behave." But no, we love you guys, bless you. No, we try to keep on top of things I try and keep on top of things in the chat. I put people's slideshows full screen, put people full screen. I put up links, and if someone mentions a resource, I've got a whole box of resources down here that I can just pull out at random. I mean, I've got one here that I promoted yesterday, Allah or Christ. That's a really good one if you're looking at sort of the Muslim aspect of things. But yes, I sort of do that on a weekly basis and pull out things, and he keeps Doki under control. And like Doki's so wild, he's just constantly running donations. It's hard to keep up with him sometimes. It's just like little bits here and there.
The party doesn't start until Doki walks in.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's 100% what it is. But yeah, and also as well as making sure that we when we need to obtain something, technology wise, we can do it in the right way. And thinking of new ideas as well, like for instance with the Bible Journey Challenge as well as the shorts as well. I'm sort of the tech guy person. So it's a lot of work actually that goes into running an online ministry. Even running this software like this that we're using. You need to know how to use it. You need to know how to put things up and take things down, and mute people. If someone has a dog barking in the background, you need to quickly go onto the mute button and mute them. That sort of thing. It's great. I enjoy it, because it gives me a chance to flex my tech sort of muscles, and it also gives me a chance to interact with you guys. If you ping a message and tag me, or if you ask a question and I reply, that's me. I'm replying. I'm the guy replying. So we try to keep on top with as much of the technology as we can, and we're always using technology, especially in our research as well. With the Strata machine as well. We've got I believe it's an engineer who's on staff who helps out with a lot of designing of the experiments and things like that. But yeah, so that's sort of a brief sort of overview of what I do on a weekly basis.
Very good, Sam. I appreciate all the work you're putting into the Creation Research team, but also here at Standing for Truth. I'm running this ministry, and when you got all these different projects, as you've been putting it in all these different avenues and platforms, it's definitely a full-time gig. And so, Sam, I appreciate that, and therefore I appreciate your help. I want to ask, how do you make sure everything runs well, as some people don't know really what it takes to run a successful ministry with a YouTube/media element to it?
A lot of patience, in a word. There's especially when things go wrong. John he tries to get presentations up, but it is a challenge sometimes to to make sure that John's slides are up, because it's a different, it's something else to learn at the end of the day. He's he knows PowerPoint like the back of his hand, and but because we've introduced a new technology, it takes a while for some people to get onto it. And there have been times where I've had to sort of step away from the chat and to call John up on WhatsApp and walk him through it, what he needs to do and that sort of thing. That's basically I step in when things go wrong, and I try and make sure they go right. And it can be difficult sometimes to know what to do, especially when you're the other side of the world from someone, and all you've got to look at is a small phone screen. But it's really, really good to it's rewarding for me anyway, because I can help so many people. I can help the chat with their questions, and I can help John and Diane and Joe, and anything technology goes wrong, or if for instance, if Joe's computer suddenly stops working, I can try and diagnose the problem. I can say, okay, well, no, you just need to reboot it, or if there's a problem with maybe the hard drive, you might need to get that looked into, or things like that. But it's a work in progress with everyone. We're all learning, we're all adapting, changing. I'm sort of on that point where I know quite a bit on tech and technology, and with live streams and things like that, how YouTube works, how to try and squeeze as much of the views juice out of YouTube as possible, and subscriber juice. But Joe and John far surpass me with knowledge and wisdom on really technical topics, and Diane as well. I mean, Diane's got a doctorate. I don't have a doctorate. I wish I had a doctorate, but I don't. But it is a whole. So what I'm trying to say is, when you're interacting with someone who's hosting a live stream, please be nice, because it can really make their day if you say good job on the stream, or things like little comments like that really do help.
Each stream, there's a lot of work put into each program that some people may not notice, and you're doing an excellent job behind the scenes and also on the front lines with these programs. That's why I always say, and it's always been a huge goal and mission of ours, to grow a team, and also to have visiting teams, visiting scholars like we do with you guys, the creation research team. Your experts are with us very frequently. And here at Stand for Truth, we have a team as well. It's so hard to just be, an expert at everything. There's a saying, jack of all trades, but master of none. And so if you have a team where you have different specialties, different focuses, for us, we've got our team geologist, Professor David McQueen. That helps because he can focus on that topic while I can focus on biology and genetics. And you guys have something very similar, where John and Joe are just absolutely brilliant on basically everything, but with a real sharp focus on geology, paleontology. Then you got Dr. Diane Eager, who's a genius at biology and genetics. And so I really appreciate your team. And I've noticed, Sam, you guys have gotten a really large pickup in views recently. How many subs have you gained recently? And could you tell us how you have managed to grow your channel relatively quickly in recent months?
I can't tell you exact figures because I don't have them in front of me. I would if I could. But I had to do an analysis the other day for them. It was, I think we've grown. Our average was around about 10 to 20 subscribers a month, and now our average is 140. So that is, I think, probably over 1,000% increase. If you just look at percentages, I may be wrong on the math. Please correct me if I'm wrong on the math, because I failed maths in the school. So sorry about that. the success really has come from two sort of aspects. So taking Creation Conversations from a half-an-hour show to a 2-hour show has really helped the ministry to really squeeze a lot of stuff, because it means we have the time to go in deep to a lot of these topics, like Diane did the other week on the origin of life. But it also gives us a better chance of answering your questions. And we can really, depending on how big the question is, it may even become a whole program in itself. And also that's really helped with the sort of the regular viewers, the building a community, that sort of thing. But also as well, we've also got what we've started doing recently with the shorts that has sort of launched us forward very rapidly. I will have a look now as to what our subscriber count is currently. I believe it's 3.29k. If I rewind the clock, we hit 3k. When did we hit 3k? It was back in it was a month ago. So we hit 3,000 subs a month ago. And we started, before then we were stuck on, I think it was 2,070 or 80, something like that. We were stuck at that point. We weren't growing. We just had this sort of amazing sort of, I had this amazing sort of revelation of just like, we're not doing shorts. Because I realized that, I was using my phone, I was scrolling through shorts on YouTube as I do, as I pass my time. And I thought, we're not doing shorts. What are we doing? We need to do this. We need to take every sort of tool that YouTube's giving us. And so we just jumped in and it's just really sort of taken off. I mean, yeah, sure, some of them are stinkers. They don't get a lot of views. I mean, if I were to click on the shorts tab now, we've had, Joe showed off Ezekiel the skeleton, got 87 views. But, one of our shorts about fossil woolly rhino poo has got, 1.8 thousand views. It's a real potluck, which is, we're trying to churn out content. We're trying to give you, something to watch every day. It's really sort of helped to sort of, give short answers to questions, which you can then send to people. The whole point of our content is you can send it to people and say, here you go. You asked this question the other day. I didn't have an answer for you, but here you go. This answers it in a lot of detail. So that's sort of what we are doing is we're using every medium that we can to try and help push both the ministry forward in finances and subscribers and views, but also to to give people something tangible to say, right, okay, so I've got this video that's really great. I've got my atheist friend who's asked me that question. I don't know the answer, but that whole live stream, that 2-hour live stream, is just on the topic that he was talking about. It's amazing. So I'll send that to him. So that is my answer to that one question. Donny, you are on mute, unfortunately. So I will fill time whilst you're on mute, as I do every single week on Creation Conversations. Make sure you tune in.
hey, that's why I count on you, Sam. And I was testing you there, brother. You did a great job, and you're getting a promotion. So
see, I'm even working now. It's not even right. It's not even.
You're being interviewed, and you're still running the program. Donny, you're on mute. Hit the unmute button, and I'm like, where's that button? So that's one of the many reasons why I really appreciate. I love partnering with the Creation Research team, teaming up with you guys, having you guys on frequently, because we're very like-minded in our ministry goals. And one of those goals is to leave no stone unturned. Have long presentations as well for those like myself who love long lectures, detailed lectures, but also very short videos answering commonly asked questions, answering objections, criticisms. And so I think it's very important, in light of all the critics that are on YouTube attacking young earth creation, basically making careers out of quote unquote debunking young earth creation. And so ministries like yours are a huge blessing, because here you are putting out so many awesome, I would say, must-watch clips debunking those criticisms, brother. So I appreciate the answer. And I'd like to ask you, what are some of the challenges that it takes to run the online section of the ministry, Sam?
PowerPoints are a big well, I wouldn't say problem. They are challenging every week. Just because of it's so many different steps to get something on the screen. You know, you got to make your presentation full screen, then you've got to go back into your browser, and then you've got to hit the share screen button, and then you've got to make sure you're sharing the actual slideshow itself, not the PowerPoint window, and you've got to make sure that's up, and then hide that until we're ready to go live, and then once we're live and we've got the presentation up, put it full screen, and then you've got to get back to your PowerPoint, and you've got to make sure it's cycling through, and it's a whole can of worms. I'll be honest, it has given me a nightmare, an actual nightmare. I think it was one of Joe's presentations he just couldn't get working, and it was like there was like a clock ticking in the back. It was like, oh, the time's running out, couldn't get it working. It was really important that we did it, and it ran out, and just all hell broke loose. Yeah, that's probably the biggest difficulty with running an online ministry, I think, is I mean, all these things have every single aspect of an online ministry has its challenges. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you look, there's always going to be a challenge. You have to, a lot of the times you have to think outside of the box to try and solve them. Especially with the Genesis project, I have to think outside of the box a lot as to how I'm going to, I've got this shot that I want to do, and it needs to go in here, and it has to be exactly 2.5 seconds long. Do I try and find some footage of that to put in, or do I create something in CGI? How would I do that in CGI? Will I have to draw a path for the object to follow, and then use a camera to animate it, and then capture that footage and then edit it? But anyway, it's just the nature of the beast. There's always going to be problems wherever you go. If you want to start an online ministry, props to you. Go for it. Really go for it. Put all the effort you can into it. Make it as high production as you can. And production value it actually means a lot in this day and age, because people look for the quality, not necessarily down to the the content is really good, but little things that not a lot of people think about is having a good microphone that goes leaps and bounds with a lot of stuff. Right. Relying on a microphone that's built into your computer. Quite often that microphone is very cheap. Because it's built for mass production. It's not designed. It's designed for a web meeting that's not going to go out live or something like that. But yeah, it's great. Do it. Put all your effort into it. Really research it as well. Go through and review some videos on YouTube. What to do, how to run a YouTube channel, how to make really good videos. Learn editing software as well. That's a big thing. You can find, the free version on your computer might be, Microsoft Clip or whatever it's called. They keep changing the name. It used to be Microsoft, Windows Video Maker back in my day. Probably shows how old I am. But also as well is really great software to use, which what I'm using is called DaVinci Resolve. It's Hollywood grade editing software, and there's a free version. And you can do color correction, you can do sound design on it. It's fantastic, really, really great. But yeah, anyway, so that is again a long-winded answer to a very simple question.
But it's a question that I think requires the thorough answer that you're so good at giving, Sam, because we do oftentimes get questions about, what's the best way to start a ministry? How should we proceed? What are some pros and cons? One thing you said about the mic, very important. When I go back for the first at least year and a half that I was doing this ministry, I did dozens and dozens of debates and shows without an external mic, because I was so comfortable just kind of talking at the computer, using the computer mic. but then you get an external mic and it just sounds 1,000 times better. Now, part of me wants to go back and redo those debates with the kind of sound quality that you and I are used to now. But Sam, my brother, I want to circle around to your book. You mentioned this last week on Creation Conversations, and it sounds really interesting. What is your book about, and how did you come up with the idea?
Okay. So the book is sort of, well, I mean, if for those who don't know, I'm currently writing a book. It's called Long Live the King. It is a theological analysis of the Godzilla and Jurassic Park films. The whole series of those films with Godzilla of 1954, directed by Ishiro Honda, right the way through to the present Hollywood ones with Godzilla versus Kong, and also all of the Jurassic Park / World sort of universe films. I was watching Godzilla versus Kong when it was releasing. And I was thinking to myself as I was watching it, it was sort of my mind wandered during a section of it. And I thought, hang on, thinking about it, there's a lot of theological sort of symbols here, a lot of themes that might be worth exploring. So I sort of had a further think about it. And I thought, hang on, I could probably tie in Jurassic Park in here as well. And it's sort of it was just a passing thought, and I thought, do I want to do this? It's a lot of work, and I don't necessarily have the time. And then I then had a lot of time suddenly, and I was just like, okay, well, I think I'm going to write a book. Actually, this is a big sort of thing for me. I've never written a book before. Probably will be my last. I don't know. I'll also have to see where things go. But I have been a massive fan of Godzilla since I was little. And actually, do you know what? Actually, I'm gonna do a classic Sam. If it's okay with you, Donny, I would love to read the introduction of my book to the viewers here. What do you think?
Absolutely. We may not have gotten a sneak peek of the movie, but we are getting a sneak peek of the upcoming book, brother. Go ahead.
All right, then. Okay. Well, here we go. So it's a little lengthy, but it gives you sort of the history as to where this passion has come from and what the book will be about and that sort of thing. So I do hope you enjoy the introduction to my book, Long Live the King. When talking about things that are important in my life, many things come up. My beloved wife and best friend, my love of video games, our beloved 2 cats, Leo and Nico, buying a property after a poor hand in life, and my dear parents who put up with my poor sense of childish humor on a weekly basis. However, one thing has always remained constant in my life is a deep running passion that burns brighter with the more time that passes each year. My love of the big radioactive monster spawned from a country that I love, Godzilla. This passion started when I was small. I was about 4 years old when my aunt returned from New York. They went at the height of the marketing craze for the first entry in the US adaptation of Godzilla in 1998. They brought me back a gift from their time in New York City. To this day, I have no idea how they carried it back with them on the plane, as they thought I would like it. It was a Godzilla money box. Godzilla himself was wrapped intricately around the Chrysler building, clutching a helicopter that might have flown past trying to attack him. The Chrysler building's sturdy structure was buckling and bending with the weight of the enormous creature that had brushed past its side as the city structures lay around in ruins. The slot for the coins was in the side of the building and activated a mechanism when a coin was inserted. Godzilla would rotate back and forth, lights would give the illusion of a city on fire as the creature roared, and the people witnessing the sight screamed. I was hooked. My parents, of course, resented my aunt for giving it to me, as I would use it constantly. Burning through batteries, much to my dad's annoyance, I had to have more. I would insist my parents record the episodes of the animated Godzilla TV series, which came out as a sort of sequel to the main film that had just released. Every Saturday morning, without fail, I'd get my parents up at 6 a.m. to set the VCR to record the episodes. I only missed one out of all of the ones that were aired. I had to have the VHS tapes and DVD of the film. I had to see more Godzilla. I couldn't get enough of the big man himself. I would buy films, books, toys, as well as all the video games that came out. It was so bad. I begged my dad to get me the GameCube version of Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, even though I wasn't old enough to play it. My dad must have felt bad for me as he printed out and stuck a 3+ logo on, so I was old enough to play it. I think my parents must have gotten tired of how I'd go on and on about Godzilla to them on a weekly basis. My love of Jurassic Park also started from a young age. My parents had a VHS tape of Jurassic Park, and I would watch it on repeat for several years. It got so bad that the tape would wear down on the parts the dinosaurs appeared on screen, as I would always wind it back several times and watch that section again and again. Then came the DVDs. I had the first 3 films on release day and would spend a many happy evening watching them. My childhood was filled with monsters and dinosaurs, giant hulking beasts that would destroy and consume everything in their path. Neither hero or villain, and never in the wrong. According to our human perception, of course, they were in the wrong and needed to be stopped or destroyed. However, they were never in the wrong from an objective point of view. They held no morals and no beliefs. They just lived on instinct, a need to survive. Then, of course, in keeping with tradition came the games. As a gamer, there have been many video games that have kept me enthralled growing up. Pokemon, the Mario franchise, Halo, GTA, Call of Duty, Battlefield, SimCity, and even a little-known game called From Dust, a game where you could be God. You could control the elements and shape the environment. I played a multitude of games based in or around the Jurassic Park universe. Most notably was Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, which was released on the PC. A game where you could control and build your own Jurassic Park, complete with food stands where you could set your prices and hatcheries where you could incubate and release any dinosaur you wanted. This was a game about what you had to do, which was not what Jeff Goldblum said. Jeff Goldblum's character, Ian Malcolm, said this was a game about playing God. Then came the waiting, a very large amount of waiting. Jurassic Park 3 was released on the 20th of July 2001, and the next film to come in the series, Jurassic World, was released on the 11th of June 2015. This is a gap of 13 years, 10 months, and 22 days. I became an adult in that time, but much to my delight, me and my dad were first in line for Jurassic World to see it in 3D on release day. As always, it was a complete spectacle of dinosaur carnage with over-the-top action sequences and deliciously good dino fights. It was what I had waited for all those years, a complete return to form for the series and digging into its roots about a park that goes horribly wrong. More recently, I was watching the latest in Godzilla's adventures, Godzilla vs. Kong, a superbly beautiful film that is made to be played on the big screen. However, after mulling this over for some time, I found that looking back on the monsters on the big screen, there are themes running through them that are undoubtedly biblical and epically so. These themes will be explored in this book, and to see if they stack up in some form parallel to God's word. I suppose one should presuppose what the stance of this book is and how it relates to the viewpoint of the amazing films that will be analysed together. Going forward, this book establishes that the Bible is the inerrant, infallible, complete, and accurate word of God and contains the truth of the origins of the world, where sin originated from, how we fell away from God, and how God put things right and sent a way for us to be saved despite our flaws and sin that would otherwise separate us from God. So there we go. That is the introduction to my book. I hope you enjoyed that. It's just a little sort of taste, but you'll have to buy the book to find the rest. Hey, so the plan is for that. It'll be coming out at some point this year, hopefully. There's a lot of research that's going into it, but it's good for me anyway because it's given me a lot of nostalgia with rewatching a lot of the things that I was growing up with, and actually I've got here a little bit of a show and tell to show how big of a Godzilla nut I am. So this is the money box I was on about. This is the I've taken the batteries out because I didn't want to ruin the battery connectors with battery acid, but this guy swings backwards and forwards, makes noises.
Very cool.
But yeah, and then I've also got numerous Godzilla figures. So this is the most expensive. This was given to me by my darling wife. This is a completely posable Godzilla figure from the 80s series. I think it's the Godzilla versus Biollante. This one is from. But this is my most expensive figure that I own. This is one of the original sort of figures that got me into Godzilla figures when I was growing up. This is Godzilla 2000, a very sort of cheap one from Japan, who's imported directly. And also, I mentioned as well video games, and this is a Game Boy Advance cartridge of Godzilla Domination.
That brings me back to my childhood.
See if I can get that in focus a little bit more. No, does it not want to focus? No. Well, there you go. There's a sort of semi-focus one. You can have a look at that online. But yeah, it just sort of gives you an idea as to how big of a Godzilla nut I am. So how important that this is for me is what it gives me nostalgia, but also it's helping me connect to it on a deeper level, to really sort of dig into these films and find the theological aspects of them and connect them to scripture in some way. And a lot of the themes that run through the Bible, take, for instance, there's one theme in the first film, Godzilla, of idol worship. Believe it or not, there's idol worship. There's inhabitants of an island that worship Godzilla to try and keep him. The children caught Pokemon. Sam catches all the Godzilla. That's so true. That's
you know what? It's a little more difficult to catch Godzilla than Magikarp.
Yeah.
Is that the name of the fish? The little bouncy.
Yeah,
fish
the useless fish that just did splash all the time until you could evolve it into
until it evolved into Gyarados. Then
that's it. Yeah, Gyarados. Yeah. But we're just nerding out here. But no, it's but yeah, it's great. It's great for me. I'm having a blast writing it. And there's a lot of things as well. Is that I'm delving a lot into the sort of the science of and the history behind Godzilla, how Godzilla came to be, so that we can properly explore things in the future. I was talking about the idol worship thing as well. I've completely forgot with Godzilla in the first, in Gojira. There is a section with idol worship. The islanders are, worshipping Godzilla, trying to appease him and keep him at bay, which harkens back to, the idol worship, in Genesis, all throughout history of, false gods and, idol worship and things like that. There is the golden calf as well, in Exodus. All of these, there's so many little connections that you can make. And the point of it is to give people the tools to, if you are watching films, it's about how to find Jesus in whatever you're doing. That's my aim with the book, is to give you the tools to do that. So that, when you are watching, say, for instance, the latest Marvel film, it could be Iron Man or what have you. You can use the techniques that are in the book to apply to that and say, okay, well, how can I find Jesus in this? Because God is everywhere. We just need to look for him. That's the point of the book, essentially.
Very good, brother. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate the introduction. You've got an excellent audio book voice, and so as someone who's written several books as well, I may just have to hire you one day to do my audio books. Very relaxing, brother. And for your birthday, I know exactly what to get you. Some kind of Godzilla collectible. So, yeah, you made it easy for me.
Wearing my Godzilla shirt, anything Godzilla related. It doesn't matter. As long as it's got Godzilla on it, I'll take it gladly. It could be a Godzilla mug or a Godzilla pen or a Godzilla ruler or something like that. It doesn't matter. I will gobble that up.
I'll get you the collector's edition of the classic Godzilla movie with Matthew Broderick. Is that Godzilla 2000? Or was
that's Godzilla 1998.
98.
So the Matthew Broderick film, it's very widely criticized in the Godzilla community because it's not too faithful to Godzilla. When Toho, there's a whole bunch of drama that happened with that. I mean, but this is the great thing when you research these, Godzilla and the topics I'm writing with the book, all sorts of things comes up and you find out. With that film, Toho licensed the Godzilla, the Godzilla IP out to Sony and TriStar Pictures. And they said, right, okay, so you've got rules you need to follow with this. You have to abide by these if you're going to make a Godzilla film. One of them is Godzilla can't be killed. And basically, Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, who's the director and producer of the film, they basically said, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do our own thing. And Toho were furious. They were very angry, very bitter about it. And one of the original, I believe, I'm right in saying one of the original actors in the suit said in a comment about the 1998 version, it takes the god out of Godzilla. The whole point of Godzilla is this unkillable force of nature that just destroys everything it touches. You can't stop it, and it's really sad actually that they decided to do that. And Dean Devlin apologized many years later. He realized that he messed up, and the Godzilla fans were so passionate about Godzilla, and so he apologized. But Roland Emmerich has yet to apologize to the Godzilla community under Toho, because he was just like, I made the movie I wanted. Yeah.
Well, I remember when George Clooney and Joel Schumacher apologized to the Batman community, Batman fan base for Batman and Robin back in the day. With
Is that the one with the nipples?
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad.
Okay. Yeah.
So thankfully they came out with Christopher Nolan's epic 3-part trilogy. So I understand how passionate the fan base could be. And it it reminds me a lot of, so this is a book by Dr. Frank Turek, who I've had on the show, and for an interview, which I highly recommend people check out. He wrote this with his son, and basically goes into that same kind of theme and message, which I do appreciate, Sam, which brings me to this important question. How can somebody then watch a film or a TV show and find Jesus or the biblical themes in them?
Well, you've got to look at sort of sometimes there's a subtext can be key, but also even the bigger themes. For instance, the example I gave with the idol worship, it's more of a subtle theme. But a bigger theme would be Godzilla being this unrelenting force of nature that just destroys everything in its path and doesn't care. What happens is sort of links into sort of the wrath of God. The immense power. God can't be stopped. You can't stop God from doing these things. Like for instance, I've read about Sodom and Gomorrah with fire raining down from the sky to destroy the city, and Godzilla has a fire breathing case. Technically it's nuclear energy, but we'll not go into that. That's too technical, and too much of a fanboy sort of thing to go into as well. But you can find connections in that. Finding the little things. It can sometimes it can be so subtle finding something, but sometimes it could be just blaring you in the face. Some of the commenters say Lord of the Rings is very biblical. It is, yeah. There's a lot of Christian themes in especially when you talking with Gandalf the Grey and Gandalf the White. Gandalf the Grey sacrifices himself to save the hobbits and the group of people that are trying to take the ring to Mordor, and then comes back as Gandalf the White, this pure, white glowing sort of wizard. That's a relationship relates to Jesus, about the resurrection. It can be just something so easy as that. And once you get into the habit of looking for these little tiny things, you can really go, you can start to dial it in a bit more. Can we go even further? Can we go even further? Go even further.
Especially with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
J.R.R. Tolkien, who had a great influence on C.S. Lewis. They were
good friends.
Yeah,
they were good friends. I think they taught together as well, actually.
Right.
Do they teach together? I can't remember.
I'm not sure if they taught together. I know they were friends, and
They were at least friends anyway.
But you can find countless Christian references and themes, biblical themes, all throughout Lord of the Rings, the books, and then the Peter Jackson trilogy. Let's all forget about that Amazon mess, of course. That doesn't exist. But yeah, if you wanted to continue, that one really jumped out at me. Lord of the Rings. Lots of Christian themes there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, but well, Jim Vaughn in the comments here says, "What in taranation are we talking about here?" Sorry, I'll drop the accent. When Hollywood borrows from biblical narrative, the franchise does well. We're talking about how to look for God in even these, what may appear as secular films, like, for instance, Iron Man or Lord of the Rings, or even the films I'm analysing, Godzilla and Jurassic Park. In Jurassic Park, you have the hubris of man, wanting to be like God. Conjures up, images of the Tower of Babel. Wanting to reach God's level, wanting to reach up into the sky, that sort of thing. These are sort of some of the things that you can have a look at and see the connections between Scripture, and it's about teaching you how to do that, essentially, and it'll follow the same method with each film, so you can learn how it works, how to do it, essentially. But yeah, so that's the aim of the book, is to delve in deep with these films, find these links, and then really just sort of just basically give that to you and say, go into the world and find Jesus and preach the gospel, and you can use those as tools as well to preach the gospel and say, oh, did you know there's some biblical themes in, Superbad, and you can go into that, and I may not even advocate for watching Superbad, but it's these. You can really have a look at, even in some of the really secular stuff. I mean, for instance, there's a whole, obvious thing of in the film This Is the End, with Seth Rogen and things like that, of the rapture. It's very blaringly obvious that that's what it's supposed to be, but again, you can really dial it in with especially some of the more nuanced films. The Whale that released recently with Brendan Fraser has got some very deep biblical themes. I
don't think I'd be recommending that one.
No, but I mean,
there's one major aspect of that.
I know, I agree, but you can find, the point is you can find Jesus everywhere. That's the point I'm trying.
I like how Kent says, chew the meat, spit out the bones. But if there's too many bones and little meat, then I'd probably say avoid it altogether, in the case with a lot of Seth Rogen's material. But when it does come to a trilogy like Lord of the Rings, let's say, there is a lot of meat and there's a lot of themes in there. But there are some movies that there's way too much bones versus meat. I would say avoid it altogether, but I do understand your point, and I appreciate that. And so, Sam, as we move past the 2-hour mark, time flies by, brother. Excellent answers to the Sammy C says choke. Yes. So if there are some movies where there's too many bones, I don't want you guys choking on them. So, okay. So as we move past the 2-hour mark, I wanted to ask you a couple last questions as we wind down here. When are you looking at launching your book, and when will it be available?
So it'll be available when it's ready again, but I'm aiming for this year. I want to get it out this year, because this has been worked on in the background for a good sort of 2 years, I think. Maybe a year. I can't really remember, but the seeds have been sown, years ago, and I think it's time to sort of bring it out into fruition. So I'm committing myself to releasing it this year. Even if it releases on December the 31st, that's still this year. So I will try to release it as soon as I can. But it's a lot of work, and I've got to sit down and analyze the films and write them down, things like that. But yeah, I will echo what Standing for Truth says about don't watch The Whale, guys. Forget I said that. Yeah, don't do that. I was trying to use a point of using an unexpected film to find Jesus, but anyway.
I guess you could say even in the most anti-Christian films,
yes,
that shouldn't be recommended. You're still going to find some
exactly. There we go. We got there, Donny. There we go. We saved the situation. It's late. I'm very sorry.
You're doing a great, brother. You're in the future. You're in the future, and I think it's because when it comes to Christianity, we actually have a solid foundation. We have a solid foundation for morality, the laws of logic, doing science in general. And so even your most secular movies, you find biblical themes, because as hard as they want to move away from the Bible and Christianity, they can't, because they have to borrow from what, brother? The Christian worldview. And so as you've put it, you can find Jesus in anything, even in a movie where there's way more bones than meat, basically, to circle back. So I completely understand what you're saying, and I appreciate the point. I'm looking forward to that book, brother.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to writing it. I'm looking forward to releasing it, and I want to, get this sort of book out and let people sort of have at it and look, pore over it and see just how easy it is to find God wherever you are. Yes, it is currently 1:30 in the morning. I'm very tired. But I'm sticking with it. I'm keeping on going. Let's tell you what. Are there any other sort of final questions you wanted to ask, or do you want to move on to audience Q&A?
No, you did a fantastic job answering my questions. I appreciate it. I will get a pot of coffee going, my brother Sam, and that way you'll be good for another 2 hours of audience questions. All jokes. You're just going to pull an all-nighter tonight, Sam. You're young. You can handle it.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not as if I need to be up early in the morning or anything. No,
right. You're not 30 yet. You got that.
I'm still young.
Front-loaded energy.
I'm still this side of 40. It's fine.
I miss when I was in high school, where I didn't actually need coffee to get my day going, but now it's coffee. So, Sam, great job again. We do have a couple audience questions. I appreciate your time. So does the audience. You've done an excellent job answering all of these questions comprehensively. And so Apologetics 101, simple question. There is a lot of excitement for this film coming out. Sam, you are putting in the time, energy, and work into it. And so I appreciate that. And he's asking, is there a way to receive an alert whenever the Genesis project has come out?
Yeah, I mean, probably the best way of doing that would be tuning into our weekly live streams. We provide you up to the minute sort of updates on things, if we've got any breaking news on anything, but also probably the best way of long-term keeping in touch would be signing up for our newsletter. It's free. You get sort of updates about the ministry, little sort of evidences here and there. You get an evidence news, I think it's every 2 weeks, I think, where we take some of the big sort of science topics that have been released and sort of break them down. And but yeah, it's really, really good stuff in there. I've been surprised about some of the sort of articles that were in there. Really, really good stuff. And if you want to tune into Creation Conversations, it's a great time to do it. It's next week, because we're celebrating 2 years of on the trot doing Creation Conversations.
2 years flies by, brother.
Yeah, I know.
Lots of content in 2 years. When you really look back and see how much content has been created and put out to the public in just 2 years, excellent work.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. It's just going to be a birthday stream, having some fun, but also we're going to be covering our I don't want to use the term money maker, because it doesn't really give us any money, but the sort of the most popular topic we've ever done. There we go. That's the term I'm looking for. Most popular topic we've ever done. Climate change. Tackling that again. So tune in if you want to tackle about climate change. You see Greta Thunberg saying, "Oh, we must not burn the fossil fuels." Tune in and find out, what's all this deal with climate change, that sort of thing.
Now, when this video ends and we eventually get a climate change banner across the video from YouTube, we know why. I appreciate that, Sam. So, last question from Sandy C. Question for Sam. I heard Joe say he knows Professor John Walton.
That's how professor spelt, Donny.
Yeah. Looks like I'm tired too, or need another coffee. So, Professor John Walton, the double PhD chemist, would you have him on for a presentation?
I would probably defer that to Joe because he's probably a better expert of character than I am. I would say I wouldn't. I'm not. Nothing's screaming at me saying no. I don't think it would be a problem. I mean, we're looking at getting some.
I think John Walton is a proponent of your. I could be wrong on this, but your ancient Near Eastern interpretations with the local flood. I think he's a strong proponent of local flood theory, old Earth creation, possibly even theistic evolution. So those three things alone, I'm not too sure, but yeah, something you'd run by.
I have been because of what happened with Ray. I am no longer in charge of guests on the show. Okay, so we'll leave that to Joe and John to sort. But some of the people that we do want to get on is we want to have Simon Turpin back on. We want to get some quite a whole bunch of people. I mean, potentially even David Reeves on again because he was great when he was on. We want to get Andy McIntosh on as well. Guys, if you're listening, hit us up. You know where to find us, creationresearch.net. But yeah, so
I wonder if Sandy C is thinking of Jonathan Sarfati because he's a young Earth creationist chemist who's been on our channel a couple times. John Walton is famous for his book that goes into the lost world, I think, of the flood or something, the lost world of Genesis. And so he's adamantly not a young Earth creationist. But yeah, okay. So Sandy C says, yes, I am. Okay, so that makes more sense. I was kind of thrown off at first, like John Walton, hardcore theistic evolutionist from my understanding. So yes, Jonathan Sarfati, that makes sense. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I'm solved. I mean, I think we'll just leave that to Joe and John. But I mean, there's no other reason why we can't get a whole bunch of other people on. And also we understand that not everyone will hold the same theological beliefs as every other person that is on the creation research team. There might be people who come on who believe in who are Calvinist or who are post-trib or pre-trib or middle trib or upside down trib, whatever it is.
All the different direction tribs.
All the different tribs. But it's what matters is the area of science that they're looking into, and I think probably our key thing would be that they believe that in 7 days of creation, but that would probably be just for the scientists. If we, for instance, if we have like to be honest, I'm probably even going to get into trouble for talking about this, so I'm just going to stop talking. I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to stop because I don't want to have like an email saying from Joe in the morning saying, Sam, I listened to your presentation. I think we should have a little chat.
It's all in good fun, and it would make for more of a memorable show, which this was. Sam, you did an excellent job. I appreciate your time because you are in the future. And so I appreciate you accommodating us here since it's late for you and a little bit earlier for the rest of us. So, Sam, lots of questions tonight. I kept you busy, but you've stayed energetic and you've stayed thorough the entire time. You provided fantastic explanations and answers to every single question to the audience. I really appreciate your involvement. Always so engaged. Please make sure to subscribe to the Creation Research channel. Make sure to check out Creation Conversations and also check out our playlist with the Creation Research team. You can find all of the relevant links in the description box. Again, the Creation Research team has collaborated with us 18 times roughly. And so we've actually got them coming back on next month for a show on degeneration, creation, evolution. So I'm looking forward to that. Doki Doki Bible Club. I appreciate that, brother. Catch the new Creation Conversations here. There's the link. Click it. Subscribe. They are putting out great content. Sam, you're putting out fantastic work. I want to hand it to you, though, for some final words, final thoughts, and anything you'd like to conclude with, brother.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the key thing for me is that, you know, with tech, I love tech. If tech isn't your thing, there's always a tech guy out there that can probably solve your problem. So it's not the end of the world if you don't know tech, but you can learn it. It's quite easy to do. You know, watch some YouTube videos, tutorials if you want to brush up on, you know, tech and what we do, you know, what sort of the technological terms that have been thrown around this evening. If you want to know more, just Google them and you find out a bit more. You know, really sort of gain your knowledge and you know, grow yourself. I'm always striving to do that. But also as well is if you haven't, please do. Hop on over to the Creation Research YouTube channel and smack that subscribe button. It's completely free, and it really does help us out. We're at this stage now where we're trying to get as much momentum behind us as possible. Even if you're an atheist or a skeptic or whatever, just subscribe and join in our chats. We're more than welcome in Creation Conversations. We'd love to have you. We have some regular viewers who are atheists or skeptics, and they love joining. You know, really good. You know, it's because, you know, one of the things that we try to do as well is that you know, we're trying to separate ourselves from sort of the keyboard warrior style and just have a really welcome and loving and open atmosphere for everyone. You know, no matter who you believe, you know, what you believe, you know, you know, we're all human at the end of the day. And I have been in the position of those people, and I know, you know, what it's like to be in that position. And, you know, the best way is treat people with love. I want to treat people how I want to be treated, and so I am trying to show Christ's love through that. You know, it's just a little aspect, but you know, it really does help. But please do, please, I beg, just this one thing for me. If you take nothing out, even if you don't buy my book, please go and subscribe to the Creation YouTube channel. It's free. And subscribe to our newsletter as well. That's a good shout as well. There are lots of great stuff in there. Really good stuff. But yeah, I think that's probably everything I want to cover. Really, it's been an absolutely wonderful time. I had a blast. My voice is probably starting to go, so I probably need to go get some sleep. Probably the wrong time for coffee now, but who is Creation Research? New Creation in Christ. Who is Creation Research? Looks interesting. Go over to, if you type in to YouTube, this live stream is just about to end, so you actually come at the perfect time. If you want to know more about our ministry, head on over to YouTube, type in Creation Research, and look for the little dinosaur with the tree and the CR, the black.
I love the logo, by the way, Sam. You did a great job.
Yeah, I designed that as well.
Right.
And I'm doing all the thumbnails.
You're the man behind the logo.
Yeah, I forgot to mention I'm doing all the thumbnails and things like that now, so that's great. But yeah, if you look for that, you should come to. Actually, I'm just going to share my screen so people know where to go. Sure. That's probably the best option. Let me pick here. Here we go. Share. Here we go. There we go. So this is Creation Research. So just feel free to head on over. You're looking for this logo here, Creation Research, or you can type in youtube.com/@Creation Research. It'll bring in you to this page here. If you are not subscribed, you'll be able to see our Genesis trailer here. These are our live streams that we do. We're also doing a series as well currently, the around the museum with Joe and Diane. Fantastic, really great 30-minute sort of chunk series that they've done. Really great. I'm doing the Bible Journey Challenge. There'll be a new video this week about that, giving you guys an update. I'm reading the Bible from start to finish in order, Genesis to Revelation. It's a big task, but I want to do it this year. I've never done it. I've never read my entire Bible, would you believe? I know, I'm a terrible Christian. But the 2022 Rocks Cry Out, we've got a whole host of everything you possibly want. And this one is a great one to get you started with. Look for this one, The Origin of Life. This is the presentation Diane did last week. Not the one just gone, the one before. A fantastic presentation. If you don't watch anything else, I highly recommend that, because it is absolutely mind-blowing. The presentation she did is fantastic. But yeah, go over, hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. Please do. It's I can't stress that enough. It really does help us. So thank you.
And there's the newsletter.
It's free. These things are free, people. You can't get better than free. Come on.
One click away. That's it. That's all it costs.
Exactly.
And Doki Doki Bible Club, I appreciate it, brother. It's been an excellent stream, and I really appreciate the work from the mods tonight in the live chat, as they have been really on the ball tonight. All the links, things that Sam's mentioning, boom, there's the links, there's the references, there's the sources for people to check out. And so the e-newsletter, I'm a big fan of that. Always very detailed. And I always love checking out what's going on in the creation research side of things. So, Sam, as always, appreciate the final words. Amen. A lot of us have been there. Like you said, you used to be one of those militant atheists or agnostics. And look at you now, defending the truth of God's word and
I'm flying,
giving the gospel, winning souls, brother.
Not actually flying. I would like to stress I'm not hovering. I am sat down on a chair.
Right. I'm sitting for truth most of the time.
That's a good one. I like
most of my I've borrowed that from my critics. Yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm sensing a rebrand coming on, sitting for truth.
Right. We're doing an entire rebranding of the ministry to reflect what's really going on.
If one of the mods could pop in the link for the CR YouTube channel, that'd be brilliant for Centurion, because it doesn't seem like they can find it.
So if you do check the description box.
Oh, yeah, it's in the description. I completely forgot about that. I forgot there was even a description, because I'm just staring at a white box.
A lot of people I've noticed, they're not the greatest at checking the description box. So, check the description box. The relevant link should be there. If they're not there, though, especially Centurion, my brother, always appreciate you and your feedback. Centurion is a warrior against evolutionism. Let me know, and I will make sure to link it. And there we go. Doki Doki. Always ready and armed.
Doki is a magician. I swear. He's just pulling these. Well, I suppose I'm probably the magician every week. He's almost like Godzilla himself, an unstoppable force.
An unstoppable force.
Stomping into the chat and saying, here's a link.
It's very true.
Here's a donation.
And one of our original or somewhat original mods too. So, okay. Well, with that being said, Sam Jenkins, appreciate you doing this. Appreciate all the answers. I definitely put you to work with all of these questions, but important questions, my brother. So we will chat soon to the audience. Thank you so much for tuning in. Share this content around. The truth is important. And we want to come together with other ministries like Creation Research that are putting out so much good work, so much awesome content, upholding the truth of God's word. With that, Donnie is out. God bless all.